In honor of Black History Month, today is all about my favorite BIPOC books. Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex, and today we're talking about my favorite BIPOC books. So, I did an episode of this last year, and I wanted to do another one this year. I read quite a few BIPOC books this year, and I didn't want this to be like a recycled list. Like, I didn't want it to be the same books from last year. But those books that were on my list last year are still really, really good. So if you want even more recommendations, go check out that one. Before we get into it, make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week, and all we do on this channel is talk about books. So if you like listening to people talk about books, here I am every week doing just that for you. So I narrowed it down to 5, and that was like really, really hard because there's so many that I really, really enjoy. The only thing that I don't really read is fantasy. So, and there's a lot of really amazing BIPOC fantasy books out there. So, I'm sorry I don't read fantasy, but there's so many out there that you can look into. I tried to get a few different genres in today, and this is just going to be 5 of my like most favorite, I guess, for right now. Like I said, the list I made last year is still really strong. I had a really hard time narrowing it down to 5, but I also didn't want to just like sit here and talk about all the amazing BIPOC books I've read. It would have been like a list over like 20 or something, and you know how much I like to talk, so I feel like that would have been just like a lot. So yeah, long story short, it's 5 books. I tried to get a nice like mix of genres, and yeah, let's get into it. I'm sorry, the lighting in here today is just like, it's frustrating me. So we're gonna try and like get through it as quickly as possible, but not rush, right? First book I'm gonna talk about today is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. Okay, I read this pretty recently. You guys probably heard me talk about it. It couldn't not go on the list though because this book was just so beautiful. This is considered a second chance romance, which I know is not like everybody's favorite thing, but I think this was done so well. I don't even really like second chance romance. And this to me was just done to perfection. Kennedy Ryan really knocked it out of the park with this. So we have these 2 parents that are also business owners together, like they own a restaurant. And so they're trying to run their restaurant and they're trying to co-parent their kids while being divorced. And as we kind of get through their story of their shared past and their trauma and how they got to where they are, we also see that there's still like this great love between them and how they're going to like navigate that moving forward. There was just no holding back in this book. Like the trauma was so sharp and beautiful and painful. I thought the BIPOC rep in this book was just outstanding. One of my friends, we read this from a book club, one of my friends mentioned to me when we did the book club discussion that like Kennedy Ryan put in 3 different types of like working women or mothers in this book, and like I can't stop thinking about that concept that she did that. And I think it's just on another level, like the amount of time she spent on the small details in this book and the representation and the character work, even for the side characters, I thought was just so well done. We get a lot of good conversations here as well, not just about like love and loss and things like that, but there's also a lot of discussions about microaggressions and Black business owners and things like that that just really sung to me, and I fell in love with this book. I really did. And I told myself not to because like I said, second chance romance is really like, it's so hit and miss with me, and so I was really afraid that it wasn't gonna work out the way that I wanted, but I think that it did. I think that Kennedy Ryan just did such an amazing job with this. The character work here was just phenomenal. The next book I'm going to talk about is Jackal by Erin E. Adams. Oh my god, I love this book. I love this book so much. Like, this is horror, by the way, and I was not prepared for this book. When I read the synopsis for this book, I was not prepared for how hard Erin E. Adams was going to shake me with this book. There was so much more happening here than I could have ever imagined. The premise for this book is basically that we have this really small Appalachian town that has a history of racism in it. And throughout the years of this town existing, black girls have gone missing or turned up dead in relation to the woods, right? And so we have our main character. She goes home for her best friend's wedding, and she's like very clearly like, I'm not staying long. I'm literally here for the wedding and I'm leaving again. Like, there's no love lost between her and this town. And while she's there for the wedding, a young girl that is very close to her ends up disappearing into the woods. And so this is her story of like her and this family and everybody trying to figure out what happened to this girl and see if they can rescue her in time before her body turns up like some of the other girls in the past, or she just like is never seen again ever like some of the other girls from her past. And we're just getting this like really in-depth historical look at this town. There's Appalachian folklore happening here. There's so many talking points on racism in this book, historical points made in this book. Erin E. Adams is actually from this town that she's writing about. And I went on like a little Google deep dive because I needed to know. I needed to know how historically accurate Erin E. Adams was. Like, I wanted to know, and she nailed it. She really nailed it. Like, everything that she talked about in this book is real. Like historically speaking, everything in this book is right. As far as I can tell, just like going on my little Google spiral, she really did her research. She's from here, like I said, so this has like a little bit of a personal edge to it too. This is fiction, okay? It's fiction. But she did her work, okay? And it just paid off in spades. This was amazing, and it had so much more gore than I was expecting. Like, so much more. This just delivered on so many levels. I'm just telling you, like, the conversation's amazing. The BIPOC rep out of this world. The horror was so well done. So many great things about this book. Now, I had a qualm with the ending. I really did. I really just wanted like 2 more pages at the end of the book. But that was probably just me. I just wanted a few more pages, honestly. But other than that, wow. If you want something that's just like really different, but has the historical bones to it and just really good gore writing, and if you like Appalachian folklore horror, read it. The next book I'm going to talk about is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Y'all knew Tia Williams was going to be on this list. Y'all knew, right? Like, you had to have known. If you've been here a minute, like, I absolutely love Tia Williams. This is the very first Tia Williams book I ever read, and this book ruined me, okay? It really did. I absolutely love this book. I read another one of Tia Williams' book last year. This one is still my favorite. This one is still my favorite. I don't know if she's ever going to top this book for me, honestly, because it was just so beautifully done. So, premise, we have 2 main characters, Shane and Eva, and when they were in high school, they were both kind of fighting their own demons, and they end up spending a week together in just basically like a trauma bubble is what I would describe it as. And then they get separated and they reconnect as adults like 15 years or 20 years later or something like that. And they just sort of pick up and try and reconnect after all these years. This book was so powerful, and a lot of people knock this book because they're like, oh, it's promoting a toxic relationship. And it's like, it's not really, but yes, this time that they spent together when they were young, it was very toxic for both of them. And I mean, it's part of the reason why they didn't see each other for so long after, was because it was obviously a very bad place for them both to be in. And to watch each of them go on their own healing journey and to see how they came out on the other side and how they reconnect later in life, to me was just astounding. Tia Williams put all the work into these characters because they just read so beautifully on the page. Like, I could not get over how much work she did on each of these characters. And this is like a split POV, so you do get both characters. Like, you get the whole story, you get their struggles and how they're dealing with their life now. And it's also like a really good ode to you can't always move past everything. Like, even though all this time has passed between the two of them, they're still working every day with their traumas, with their struggles. Like, it's not just you deal with your struggle and then you move on. Like, some things will always be with you. And we do get into a lot of conversations about that, about how things just stay with you, and like, you have to wake up every day and choose to move through it. And I think that's just such a beautiful conversation about mental health that was just happening in this book. We also get so much good BIPOC rep in this book. We get so much disability rep in this book. We get mental health rep. We get addiction rep. It's just amazing how much Tia Williams put into this. Honestly, it's amazing to me. And I think she just nailed it. There's so many amazing conversations. I've used that word so many times now. The conversations that are happening in this book, also in relation to like Black authors and things, like there's a really nice parallel there of conversations that's happening that I wasn't expecting, and I really appreciated. And I think Tia Williams put a little bit of herself into that conversation that they were having. Lots of great stuff. Lots of great stuff. I cannot recommend this book enough. I absolutely adore it. Tia Williams just stole my heart with this book. This may forever be my favorite Tia Williams book. I don't think she'll ever top this one for me. The next book I'm going to talk about is Little and Lion by Brandy Colbert. Like I said, I was like, try not to repeat any books. I cannot not speak on this book because this book to me is just amazing. I love this book too. And I was like, we need to put a YA book in there, right? I cannot tell you how many BIPOC YA books I have like on my list that I've done, but this one, Little and Lion, has got to be the one that I recommend the most, the one that I love the most. I absolutely love this book because there's so much representation in this book on so many different levels that I can't not recommend it. So we have our female main character, and she has been spending a year at like a private boarding school that her parents sent her to. Her parents sent her to this school because her stepbrother Linus got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and it was becoming really, really hard for them to navigate his diagnosis and treatment. And also his sister, our main character, was dealing with a lot of fallout from that at school and having issues. And so the parents and her decided it would be best if she spent a year at a boarding school so that she could have a fresh start, time to herself, while they kind of helped Linus work through the beginnings of his diagnosis and getting settled into treatment and finding a path forward, basically. So some things happen at boarding school right before summer break, and when she gets home, she's just determined, I don't want to go back. And so she's trying to settle into her life back home for the summer, and also trying to come up with a way to like break to her parents that she doesn't want to go back to boarding school. And as soon as she arrives home, she realizes that her brother Linus is off of his bipolar medication. And he's asked her to not say anything to their parents and to basically just like let him figure it out. And so this whole story is her summer of coming home and trying to like reconnect with her family and move ahead, but also carrying this burden for her and for Linus as Linus decides to take his treatment into his own hands. Whew. Okay, that was a really long synopsis. The rep in this book. The BIPOC rep, very, very good. So we have, our main character is BIPOC, and so is her mother. And so her mother and her stepfather is Jewish, and so Linus is Jewish also. There's also like, so we do have some good rep there. There's also like marriage rep in this book that I wasn't expecting, because Linus's father and our main character's mother are actually not married. They just like live together, but they call each other a family, and they've been together for a really long time, but they've never actually gotten married. And so there's a lot of like really good family dynamics representation here that I absolutely love, and a lot of conversations about that just really elevated the whole thing for me. There's some LGBTQIA rep in this book that I really love. The mental health representation in this book is just astounding. The character work was done really, really well. I cannot sing this book's praises enough. I absolutely love this book. I think this is a really good like kicking off spot. Like it has so much happening in it, and then there's just an amount of relatability with our main character here that is just so beautifully done. Like I said, this is one of the ones that I love to recommend the most, but I feel like I recommend it all the time. It's so easy to recommend though, because I think Brandy Colbert did something like really, really cool here. Like just lots of little things throughout, and the character work is definitely there. Okay, this is the last book I'm going to talk about today. It's Who Asked You by Terry McMillan. I've never talked about this book on my channel. One of the reasons I've never talked about this book, because I literally don't know how to describe this book. It has such a complicated premise that when you read the synopsis for this book, like when you pull it up on Goodreads or wherever you look for your books and you read the blurb for this, you're like, I have no idea what this book's going to be about. I would consider this book contemporary fiction because I don't think it falls into anything else. So we have our main character. I think her name is Betty Jean, and she is the matriarch of the family. She's got a husband living at home that is on the decline of like Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that. And so she's kind of taking care of him. She's got all these grown children that either don't want to come see her, are in prison, or need too much from her all the time. And she's got a whole slew of sisters that are always like telling her what she should do and what she shouldn't do, and like trying to dictate her life when it's just not helpful. And then in the middle of all this, one of her children shows up at her house and says, watch my little boys for me. I'll be back at the end of the day to get them. And she never comes back. And so now Betty Jean is like tasked with raising these two young boys when she's already like almost into her 70s, and she's basically having to start over. This book was, okay, first of all, very, very good. Okay, the stories that we're getting here are just out of the park. Okay, I don't really know how to explain it, but we're getting so many different points of view in this book, so many different storylines. We're hearing from all of the children. We're hearing from the husband. We're hearing from Betty Jean. We're hearing from the two children that she's raising. I think at some point even we're hearing from like neighbors and caregivers and stuff. This is really almost like a community type book of like the village that you need to raise children, or the village like that you have. It may not be the perfect village and it may not be what you need, but it's all you have, and you have to do with what you have. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like you have to make do with who you have and what you have. And that's all Betty Jean is trying to do always, is make do with what she has. And this was just a really interesting story. The writing style will not be for everybody. In fact, for me, the writing style was very difficult to grasp onto. Even now when I'm looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, I didn't like the way that it was written. I didn't like the way that it was written. Like the formatting and stuff for me, the way that Terry McMillan and the publishers decided to format and put this book together, it didn't work that well for me. But even though that didn't work that well for me, the book did. Like the point of the book and the whole story and like hearing from everybody, this was just like a culmination of everyone's life put together around Betty Jean and how she navigates through it. I think this is one of those books that it's not pretty, it's not simple, it's not easy, but it's real. Do you know what I mean? It's real and raw and truthful, and I think Terry McMillan just made something really interesting. So, if you don't mind the formatting or kind of the chaoticness of this book, there are a lot of really wonderful things that happen in this book. A lot of really sad things, a lot of real things are happening throughout this book, and I think she did an amazing job putting it together. Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. So we had the second chance romance, and then we had horror. The horror book was so good, you guys. Then we had YA. The Tia Williams book is definitely marketed as a romance book. I would say it has romantic elements in it, but I think the healing journey in that book is just worth it. And then the last one I would call it contemporary fiction because I have no other way, I have no other idea of what to call it. But yeah, I tried to get like a good mix of genres in here for you guys to kind of like pick through. If you've read any of these books and you love them, please leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you guys. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. I think next week, I don't know, I'll have to look at my schedule, what's on next week's docket. And then February is going to be over like really quick. So I've already put away a couple of good BIPOC books this month that I'm like so happy that I picked. And yeah, the month's going pretty good. I hope it's going pretty good for you guys too. Make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week. And yep, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you are enjoying February, and I hope you enjoyed some of my favorite BIPOC books. And I will see you all next time. Bye!